Okay, I mean, that's fine. I don't need it. I'll just make sure
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
loud enough for everyone.
I'm not sure we got enough chairs. Sure.
Hello. I wanted to start off by just saying we are all here today because we love our children and want what's best for them. I am not trying to impose my values on our school district, but rather make the community aware of what our children are reading and how I'm trying to find out the guidelines and protocol for selecting approved books. No one has ever said the book The Handmaid's Tale should be banned. It can stay in the library, on the teacher's shelves, and any parent can purchase this book for their children. I am asking for its relevancy due to sexually explicit content and whether there is another book that meets the criteria without using this type of language. Remember that we are all friends and community members and need to respect the opinions of each other. This is about our kids. This is also a lesson for our children on how to handle conflict like adults. We should be able to leave here today feeling good that we are engaging in the educational process of our kids. Under Wyomissing's philosophy of education, online it states that parents must take primary responsibility for teaching ethics, values, morals, and citizenship to their children. I taught my 3 daughters growing up, be careful what you watch, read, and listen to, because once it goes in here, you can't get it back out. Why would I want my children having images in their mind, and these are quoted from the book, women sucking penises or guns on page 118, hanging from the ceiling by a chain naked, page 34, breasts being fingered for ripeness, page 60, women being held down and, I'm not even going to say it again, the F word, page 94, hanging from trees upside down with their legs held apart, page 118, pony whips and being bent over a table, page 231. Forced prostitution, where some of them are wearing cheerleading outfits, on page 235. And by the way, my daughter is a cheerleader and tells me that they are referred to in this school district as sluts. Why do we want our children thinking nature demands variety from men, that it's nature's plan, page 237, or about faking an orgasm, page 255. We have access use laws in this state and school district. In Wyomissing, policy number 7 prohibits the access of obscene, pornographic, lewd, or otherwise illegal material on the internet. Why would we put obscene, pornographic novel on our approved reading list? When told by a 16-year-old girl this summer that she was confused, disturbed, and upset by the contents of this book, I asked her if she talked to her mom about it. She said no, because she thought all adults would think it was okay. She couldn't believe that I was also upset by it. I called her mom that night and said she needed to talk with her daughter about this book. I also gave her 19 pages of highlighted obscene material that her daughter had read. This book provokes fear in young girls, which leads to distrust, anger, and hatred toward men. It gives teenage boys sexual ideas about females. What are the criteria for choosing books in the English department? If there aren't any, then will our 7th graders be reading 50 Shades of Grey next year? By adults choosing to approve this book, we are telling our children this obscene material is good literature. Remember, we are not asking for this book to be banned, but to be replaced with a book that meets curriculum criteria number 4, that states material shall be appropriate for the age, emotional, and social development for whom the materials are selected. Thank you for your time, for serving on the board, and for teaching our children. I thought there would be some English teachers here today. I also have with me the 19 pages I referred to, along with what I spoke on Monday night at the board meeting and today. If anyone would like a copy, because I don't want any misinterpretations of what I've just said. Thank you.
If you guys could just state your name too before you speak, thank you.
It's on. Can you hear me? Okay. Megan Flanagan, Balloon, 1532 Cartfield. Okay, I don't need copies, thank you though, because I've read the book probably 10 times. I actually read it as a teenager at Wyomissing, and I would have to say it was one of the most impactful books that I read. We had tremendous open discussions about it. I was not afraid of the book. I can't imagine there being a boy, that having 4 boys of my own, I can't imagine my sons reading this and coming up with sexual ideas of what to do to women. I hope that they are abhorred by what this book says. This book is not pornography. If you take the shock value items that were read out of context, sure, it sounds awful. But when you read those lines within the context of the novel, it is talking about women's right, the feelings of hopelessness when you have no control over your body, or say, when you can't read, when you can't write, when you live in a totalitarian government. What the answer is saying in the book is that you should be happy you're a handmaid, because look what happened to the women back then. And unfortunately, that happens to women today. So for us to be naive and to say that our children don't know that these things happen, I can only imagine sending a daughter to college and them not knowing that these things happen. As a woman, when I walk out in the night, I am cognizant of all of my surroundings because I have to. And it's a shame that I have to. I should be able to go wherever I want, whenever I want, without a fear of anything. But unfortunately, that's the society we live in. And when Atwood wrote this book in the 1980s, it was the reality we lived in then. But there has never been a time when this book and its themes have been more prominent in society. Some of the things you've read, I'm sorry, I heard a national leader say some of those words and do some of those things to people. So it's okay that our children can hear those things on the news, have discussions about them perhaps in current events, but they can't read an award-winning novel that is recommended by the Pennsylvania Board of Education and is on the AP test. Books should be assessed for their literary and educational context. This book is optional, meaning not required. The children do not have to choose it. A parent who has issue with this book can tell their child not to read it. I want the choice to tell my boys to read it, because as a mother of boys, to send them out in the world and not have respect for women and what women have to go through is wrong. And I'll reiterate, and I know someone else is going to say it, this is not pornography. And to put this novel into that category is so wrong, and it's denigrating to its message and its impact and to the author itself. And we have great teachers here with great English teachers, and there's a reason they want the kids to read it. And authors who are good authors want you to feel uncomfortable when you're reading something. And they want you to say, why does this bother me so much? What is wrong with this? Do I believe it? Do I not believe it? And then because we have great teachers, they get to have a discussion, an open discussion. And then guess what? I always know what my kids are reading. The suggested book list comes home. They are free and expected to choose what they want. But then I ask them, what did you choose? Sometimes I read the whole book. Sometimes I don't. But we discuss it. I always know. So if I have a problem with a book, I'm going to ask them to choose another. I can't imagine that I ever would, because I do not believe in banning a book. I do not believe in censorship at all. And to say that this book is not being asked to be banned, we're talking about semantics. We really are. You're asking it to be unavailable to children who rarely go to the library anymore. When was the last time a teenager went to the library? Everything is online. Has your kid read 13 Reasons Why? They should. Have they seen the show? They should. And that has more sexual images and rape and such not than The Handmaid's Tale. But they should see it. They should know what is going on. And a boy should know. No means no, no matter what it said. At no matter what point, no means no. And girls should know, you know what? You always gotta be careful. And it's a shame. You shouldn't have to be, but you do. So, if you take this book off the choice list, choice again, optional again, then you are essentially saying that Wyomissing is now going to become a school of censorship. And you are saying that we all get to have a big say in curriculum. Is that what you want? Because hereafter, there are going to be lots of people telling you what they want you to teach. And as a public school, you're here to teach all of the children, not just a few, to the best of your ability. And a lot of that has to come from what is recommended by the state. And face it, a lot of things are taught because they're in a test. This isn't a test. All right, thank you.
Hi, my name's Holly Feeney, and I don't use one of these. If anybody can't hear me, tell me, but usually that's not an issue for me. I've never been asked to speak up in my life. I'm here to speak. Oh, sure. Holly Feeney, I live at 200 Kent Way. The Handmaid's Tale is actually one of my favorite novels. But that's actually not why I'm here. Even if I hated The Handmaid's Tale, I would be here. Even if everything in its themes and its attitudes went against everything that I try to teach on a daily basis to my 3 children, I would be here. Because the point here isn't, is the book good, is the book bad, do I like the book, do I not like the book, did this book speak to me, did it not? The point here is that books are about ideas, and ideas are how we learn. When I read the article in the paper about the school board meeting, the first thing that I noticed was that one of the parents said that her daughter felt uncomfortable and confused and I think discomfited or something like that when she read the book. And I remember thinking, well, of course you did. I mean, you were supposed to. That's what Atwood was going for. If you read that book and you're not discomfited and uncomfortable and confused, then you either didn't really understand the book or you need more help than the English department can give you. That book is supposed to be uncomfortable. And that's not bad. That just means that it's supposed to engender discussion and cause you to express how you feel and why. And what did the author mean? And you know what that's called? That's called English class. I was an English literature major in college, and that was what we did. I think that the important thing here is that once we start down this path, it's a slippery slope. We take this book off because this very nice lady here was upset about it, and maybe a couple others were. And then we take the next book off because some other guy doesn't like it. And then we take another book off because 3 people down the street don't enjoy that theme. And pretty soon, there's very little to read. At least there's very little of any importance to read. And that's what we want our children to be doing. We want them to be reading things of great importance so that they can have great discussions, so that they can be able to defend their opinions, so they can write wonderful essays and get 5s on the AP English test and go to college. But I think the other part's probably more important, although whenever I talk to my kids, they don't quite see it that way. They're way more focused on the back end. I just think that to make a determination as to whether a book is of value and belongs in this school, based on the fact that some people are uncomfortable by it, is not what we want to be making that decision on. Now, if the book were truly pornography, if you were having my kids read Hustler, maybe you and I would be having a different conversation. But I would like to talk to you about the definition of pornography. And that is that it is printed or visual material containing the explicit description or display of sexual organs or activity, intending to stimulate erotic rather than aesthetic or emotional feelings. I think that what has been said about the book itself by the people who don't want the book in the school actually shows that it's not pornographic. Nobody said, I thought that people were going to be sexually excited and titillated by this book. They said, I think everybody's going to be made very uncomfortable by this book because the themes are not good. The themes are frightening. Well, that's not pornography, by definition. That's not pornography or obscenity, by its legal definition. And that does matter. The book is here not for those passages. And when you read those passages in a vacuum, they sound really bad. But when you read them in the whole of the novel, and really, I urge everyone to do so, whether you like the book or you don't, whether you've heard what Megan and I have said and agreed with us, or heard what this nice lady has said and agreed with her, I think everyone should read the entire book and then make a decision. Because the book itself is about so many different things. It's dystopian, it's science fiction, it's about totalitarianism, it's about censorship. I find it more than mildly ironic that A, it's during Banned Books Week and I'm up here trying to keep somebody from, yes, banning a book, and also that the book itself is about censorship. The women in The Handmaid's Tale are not allowed to read. They're not allowed to read books. In fact, in the beginning of the book, women get together who are feminists, and they destroy pornography and erotica in a big bonfire. And they're part of the problem. They're what leads to Gilead. Censorship itself. And it is censorship, and it is banned. If you take a book off of an optional reading list, it is banning the book, because there are kids in our school who are so busy between the million AP classes they take and the extracurricular activities that they do and the theater and the music and everything else. Our kids are amazingly well-rounded and they don't have tons of time. And sometimes if a book isn't on an optional reading list, it's not going to get read. So taking that book off is making it far less likely that our children are ever going to read that book. But it is optional. And as Megan rightly said, parents should be involved. When you get the book list, look at the books. If there's something there that you really don't want your kids to read, you can make that decision for your child. I am always of the opinion that I don't censor books. In fact, I send a letter to their English teachers every year at the beginning of the year saying, let them read anything they like. Give them anything you think they'd enjoy. I will never tell my kids not to read something. I might read it too and talk to them about it. And really, if your child is discomforted by that book, that is exactly what everyone should do. Read the book. Talk about the themes. Ask them what makes them uncomfortable. What a great conversation to have with a teenager. They don't talk a lot. If my kid came home and said, I read this thing that made me really uncomfortable, I'd read that thing as fast as I could so that we could have a conversation about it. I don't know what else to say except that 8 years ago when I moved to Berks County, I had the choice of moving wherever I wanted. Because I didn't have any family here. I'm not from here. Which gets pointed out to me a lot here. And I picked Wyomissing. I picked it because I asked everybody what the best school district in the county was. Where were the academics the best? Because that's where I wanted to send my kids. Because that's really important to me. And when I did that, it was almost unanimous. It was Wyomissing, over and over and over again. Sometimes grudgingly, sometimes said with lots of snide remarks on it too, but it was always Wyomissing. And that's where I wanted to go, because that was what was vital. My daughter still complained. She was like, couldn't you have looked at how big the band was? But I picked here on purpose. I didn't choose it because I thought that it would be a place where I would have to have this conversation about books. Because if you value learning, if you value education, if you value ideas, you have to at least consider all of them, even ones that you personally don't like or don't enjoy or don't want. That's what learning is. So I urge you to keep not only that book on the optional reading list, but really every other book that's on the optional reading list that I have looked at. I think that ideas are important, and they're what we want our children to come away with. And sometimes that's really hard in this competitive school where everyone's trying to get into the best college possible. I try to keep it about ideas as much as I can at my house. And blocking ideas is just not where I want my kids to think something important comes from, even if they're ideas with which I do not agree with. So please leave this book on the list. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ann Walsh. Yes, sir, you can hear me. Ann Walsh, I live at 211 Cherry Drive in Wyomissing. And I do agree with some of what was set up here by pretty much everybody so far. And I wanted to say that I'm a parent of a 7th grader, so obviously I'm looking ahead versus looking at now. She's new to this school, not the school district, but obviously new to this school, and I'm new to actually having to watch what she reads. So just like the mothers and fathers that are here, I'm very involved in my child's life. And I work hard to make sure I guide her with my values and beliefs. I look out for her safety and I use discretion when it comes to the apps, the music, the TV shows that she watches to make sure that they are appropriate and that they are not full of sexual violence and sexual content as well. And it's so much is at their fingertips today that we never had to really worry about years ago, at least not to this degree. I believe it's my job to protect her from that to the degree that I can. But I also trust the school to do their part and provide a safe environment as free from inappropriate and sexual content as possible. And in fact, according to your policies, you do. And I'm not just talking about this specific book. I don't know what other books are out there that I'm going to encounter as time goes on with her being here. I trust the school to use good judgment in the curriculum and work according to the policy and guidelines that they give us. And in the case of The Handmaid's Tale, I was very disappointed. I was very disappointed, and if that book had come on a reading list and my daughter had gotten that, I would have been very angry had I not known that the content that was in that was explicit. Even songs, apps, whatever, tell you if it's explicit content. And I understand why you wouldn't want explicit next to a book that's on the website, because then all the parents are going to read it and you're going to have more of this. But there is no warning for parents on that. That was just a book. Just a book with a description. And so I want to leave you with a question here. And obviously you have to look at the guidelines, you have to make a decision within the guidelines, the policy and policies that the school district sets forth. But if you were to stand in front of all of the 11th grade parents and were to read the description of the book to them, would you be able to look them in the eye and defend the book? You probably would. It's all about society, the resulting society is a feminist nightmare, women are strictly controlled, unable to have jobs, etc., etc. Kind of darkly intriguing as a novel. But when you read the words that were just read up here, would you be able to stand in front of those 11th grade parents and read those words and tell them that those words and that content is in that book and look them in the eye, and this is a group of parents, look them in the eye and defend why it's on the reading list? And again, I'm not talking about banning a book either, but I want to know if there's explicit content in a book. There are mothers that have 3 and 4 kids. They're not all reading all the books. And looking at that description, I would admit to my daughter you're not allowed to read it. Thank you.
Hi, Lucinda Butler, 308 Logan Avenue. I promise to be quick and to the point, not too drawn out. The Handmaid's Tale creates discomfort because of its negative view on sex, treatment of women, and religion. Kind of sounds like Shakespeare, Orwell, Salinger, and even Rowling to me. The teaching points of this book, which is why it's on the list, are politics and censorship. The act of censoring this book and others like it are just like the men removing the women's right to read in this story. This book demonstrates the importance of reading to our freedoms, whether it's religion, intellectual, or political freedoms. The classes that are reading this are on the edge of adulthood already. The world is not coddling our children. We shouldn't either at this point. This school has received accolades because of their curriculum and the steps they take in preparing our young adults for their next step into the world. This book is part of that curriculum, and it should not change. The school has taken the step. It is on an optional reading list. They have done their due diligence. It is up to us as parents. It is our personal responsibility. The school is not forcing them to do anything. They have put the responsibility on the parents to take care of their children's education. And I thank you so much for it today.
Dean Vandersall, 27 East Park Road, Wyomissing. I'm gonna go a little different than I went at the board meeting today. I got nothing but love for everybody that teaches, because I know how hard I was as a student. I'm a certified recovery specialist for the state of Pennsylvania, and I work with people in all types of addictions, and sexual addiction and predatory sexual addiction is something I do a lot. I work with pedophiles and men that have raped women and have hung them on trees and have cut their nipples off with garden shears and stuck hot irons up their privates. And I know the mindset of a criminal. And I know the mindset of what happens when stuff is introduced to our children at a very young age. Okay? And no matter how much psychotherapy you do, no matter how long it takes for you to get to a place of where the root is with somebody in addictions, it always comes back to two things. It comes back to somewhere in their childhood, they weren't loved properly. And the other thing is, something happened that they, especially when it comes to sexual addiction, that they were introduced to something sexually explicit, either physically or by material, that has led them and started something that has happened and caused this thing to fester and grow later in life. And I'm not sitting here saying that our kids are going to end up like this. What I'm concerned about is the child who doesn't have the parents that can read books, that doesn't have that has a mom that's so worn out from 3 jobs and the broken home from a father that has beaten them, or the brokenness. And the idea comes into that child's mind through a book that the school offers. Because, as I heard earlier, books are about getting ideas. And if you have a healthy environment, an environment that it loves and grows kids, then the ideas can be taught. But what they do in these federal prisons, these high security prisons, is they get a book and they tear the page out that sexually stimulates them, and they hide it in themselves. So I just, this is happening all over the world. This is happening to our children. This is happening to our women. And I just sit here with nothing but love for everybody here, because honestly, I don't read every book that comes through my house. And honestly, I really don't want to read every book that comes through my house. I don't have the time, and I'm not that type of reader. And I just want to, just want to know that I can trust that when my child reads this book, that I'm not going to have to answer questions about this, because this is an epidemic that is kept quiet in our society, but it's festering and growing. Thanks for letting me share.
Hello, my name is Karina Owens. I live at 126 Deborah Drive in Wyomissing Hills. And my children have been attending Wyomissing since elementary school. I have something that I wrote down and to keep focused, because based on what everyone has said so far, your mind is racing and you have so many answers and replies for people of what they're saying. So I'm going to try to stick with this. Okay. When I first was presented with the book, The Handmaid's Tale, and the perverse passages that it held, my jaw dropped. This kind of profanity mixed with sexual deviant behavior is not necessary to educate high school students about any subject. I thought, why is something like this allowed at our high school? Who is approving such pornographic material for our children to read? And who is accountable? There are so many books that do not have explicit material that educate and expand our minds. We are a public school that stands for excellence above all others. Wyomissing prides itself in this. Let's proceed with our selected book readings with pride and excellence. And above all, a moral compass at hand. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rob Brash. I have 2 kids that go here, one at the Hills, one graduating this year. I wasn't planning on speaking because I hate public speaking, but I'm just going to give you kind of a twist that we keep hearing about all these pornographic passages. The passages, are they direct and are they sexual in nature? Absolutely. When you just look at that and not the context that it's built around, it's easy to go and just say, oh, look, there's a word penis, there's a word pussy, there's this. It's the context of the book. I was a Catholic schoolboy, went to an all-boys school, very strict. In high school, I actually was allowed to read this book with nuns, priests, Catholic administration. And when I say it was a strict Catholic school, it was. When I read this book, it was optional, and my mother wanted me to read it. And was I uncomfortable? Yes. I was 16 years old, uncomfortable, but the beauty that came out of it is that my mother and I actually would sit down and talk. And I think I got a lot of my values from reading that book and having discussions with my mom and my sister. I think it does teach a lot. I think it's an amazing piece of literature. I don't think it should be banned. I think it's an optional book. And I think everybody here says optional, underline. If you don't have the time to read a book, Google it. Go on Amazon, read the reviews. You can find out about any text in a matter of 5 minutes. You can go on Kindle and get a free preview of the book, the first chapter. There's a lot of things that I think should not be banned. And I absolutely believe that this book should be an optional read to students. And you know what? I'm going to have my son read it now. And he doesn't have to. But I'm going to read it. He's going to read it. And we're going to talk about it. There's nothing wrong with feeling uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable every time I hear the president's name. I feel uncomfortable that certain people in the district are looking for nothing more than a soundbite on Fox News. I am very uncomfortable with that. But you know what? I believe it's their right. It's absolutely their right. Again, I'm coming from the other side. The book is a great piece of literature. If you haven't read it and you don't understand the context and what it is teaching, then you have to go back to school. Because reading comprehension is a big part of reading. There's some things that should not be there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dawn Walls, 738 Franklin Street in West Reading. I would just, everybody's very eloquent, this may not be so eloquent. I would like to say thanks. Thanks for giving me the option to make the choices that we need to make in our family. This is not a book that's shared with 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. It's for juniors and seniors. And it isn't even about the book. The Handmaid's Tale is a great book, but it isn't about that. It's about giving us the option to opt out if we want to, and to make the decisions that we need to make based on our children's vulnerabilities and what they can handle. If your children can't handle it, then it's not required, it's an option. Thank you for giving us the options. That's all.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Moore-Worley. I live at 102 Deborah Drive in Wyomissing Hills. I wasn't actually going to speak because I did send a letter to all the board members earlier this week when I heard about this. I was an English major at UCLA, and I read a lot of books that were banned at one point in history. I can't believe that in 2017 I'm standing before you with the word banned books on my tongue. I have the youngest girls on both sides of our family. I have been criticized up one side and down the other from both my sisters and my nephews and my nieces for being an overprotective mother. A helicopter parent, in fact. I'm sure some of you in Wyomissing know exactly what I'm talking about. I am extremely passionate about freedom of speech, freedom to read what we want. I have an 11th grader. I don't think this class, I'm not even sure which class this is for actually. Does anybody, which class this was for? Honors English?
This is for the 11th grade honors.
Okay, well my daughter's taking AP, so it wasn't on her list to read. If I'd seen it, I would have had her read it. Emma, my 11th grader, asked me if she could get out of class to be here today. She thought that since this is about her education, she should have the ability to speak. She's not here, so I'm speaking for her. Basically, she said, if you're concerned about what's in that book, and she's read some of the more interesting passages, you should walk down the halls at school and hear the things that I hear. I'm getting as much of my education being around other kids as I am from what comes within the pages of the things that I'm assigned. When 1 out of every 3 women get raped in college campuses, and I have a sophomore and it worries the hell out of me, I think it's something that both men and women should read. When I hear those statistics, 1 out of 3 women are going to be raped, I think, what the hell are we doing with our sons? What are we doing raising our sons if they think this is okay? My job as a parent, I always joke, is to raise happy, healthy, well-adjusted, well-educated, independent, contributing adults. That's my job. I hope I'm doing pretty good. My daughter is 16. In less than 2 years, she's going to be in college. I want her to be prepared for the real world, and there's a lot of ugly out in the real world. A lot of ugly. You can't turn on the news without hearing some crisis. I've been a Girl Scout leader since my oldest daughter was in kindergarten. I work really hard to raise my girls to be leaders. I want them to have choices. I want them to be able to choose to read something. And yes, as a parent, I can buy that book and have them read it. But as somebody else pointed out, I'm sorry, I can't remember who, they're really busy. 4 AP classes, lots of extracurricular activities. They don't have a lot of time to read books outside of school assignments. They really don't. So again, whoever said, I think the last one, thank you for giving my children a choice. I completely and absolutely respect every single parent's right to control what their children read or watch on TV. But my daughter said to me, you know what, Mom? Almost every single one of my friends has watched Game of Thrones. To me, seeing something visually is a lot more impactful than reading about it. So, when you're asking the student or the school board to remove a book from a recommended reading list, that is banning the book for a lot of kids. So I stand firmly on the side of, please don't ban any books. Yes, they can go get it in the library. Yes, they can go buy it, but most of them won't. And here at least you'll be giving kids an opportunity to read something that I think is really valuable. I read it when it first came out. I'm still uncomfortable but I learned a lot.
Allison Vandersloot, 27 East Park Road in Wyomissing. And my heart truly just goes out to the child that doesn't have the parent that they can go home to and talk about this with. Entering into reading of the book without having any information whatsoever of what they are going to be entering into. Having lived through traumas themselves that will be triggered through some of the content in this book. And generally when you look, a lot of these kids, when they've gone through a trauma, they're not talking about it because it's embarrassing. And it's scary. Like, they don't know what to do. They don't even go to their parents at times. And it's, you know, when they finally do, like, you know, it could have been some time past before that has happened. So my heart really truly just goes out to those kids that could be entering into reading this book with having traumas in their life that they would not be able to discuss or are really just inwardly dealing with. And we know the different ways that that could be happening as well, through just self-harm or other ways. But I just would like that to be considered with the material that is chosen for the curriculums for the school, that awareness is really loud and clear. Maybe for certain books that have different kind of contents in it, that they could go home with a note or something to the parents saying, this is what is in this book, and maybe a signature coming back that the parent actually did view what is going on in the book, because there's a lot of parents here that are very involved, and that's wonderful. But there are those children that do not have that, and that's where my heart goes. Thank you.
So my name is Chris Falloon. I live 1532 Garfield Avenue. I make a choice to live here in Wyomissing. I don't need to live here. I work in New York City, but by choice, I stay here in this district. I stay here in this district because it's an amazing school district. But as soon as you begin censoring, removing, banning any type of critically acclaimed, award-winning literature, you're then degrading the value of the education the kids get. Plain and simple. Some of us are concerned for a few individuals. It is a public school. So many individuals come here. They need to hear these things. It is on the state-approved education list. It is a great piece of literature. I have 4 boys. My boys will read it when it's appropriate. They will learn about the horrors that do occur in this dystopian future that we all pray never comes to truth. It is a mistake if you remove it from a optional reading list. And if you do, or you censor it in any way, then why do I stay? I will find another district that I think is more qualified for my kids, my taxes, and my time.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak?
My name is Jen Reimer. I live at 19 Marymount Road. I moved into this district 10 years ago without children because this is the district I wanted to be in if I were to have children. I have a first grader. This doesn't really reflect her education today. This is a public school district. The concept of banning books in 2017 is ludicrous. This is a great piece of literature, and the idea that we would censor an optional summer reading book is unheard of. We are not forcing anyone to read this book. If this book were in the classroom, parents can still speak to the teacher and say, my child will sit out from reading this book, please give them something different. No one is forcing anybody to do anything, but to take away the option is not an option. This book is on the AP test. This book is only for the honors list. This book is optional. To remove this book from an optional reading list that is needed for the AP test does not make sense. For parents to have a political, a religious, or a personal situation with the book that they feel their child should not read it, then their child does not have to read it. No one is being forced to do anything. Do not remove this book. It was 2017. We should not be banning books. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry, I'm used to going last where I work. A couple of things came up, and I think they're important, they're really important.
Can you just make it
Oh.
short, because we generally don't allow people to
I
speak. more
promise,
than
real
once.
short.
Okay.
The lady that said that she worries about the child that doesn't have anybody to talk to, that has a trauma. Well, I would say that school would be a great place for her to read that book, because I bet you there's a teacher or a counselor or somebody that she could go to, and maybe it would make them open up. And the gentleman who works with criminals, I work with criminals myself. And again, if you see somebody reading The Handmaid's Tale and their comments in class are inappropriate and they seem salacious, maybe that's a time when a teacher could get a counselor involved. Those are not reasons those are not reasons to ban a book, those are reasons to have a book. That's why we have educators. They're gonna be reading it with professionals.
No,
In
they're
a
not.
s- in a s-
This was summer reading.
Right,
No one
but they're
was
gonna
around.
dis- but they're
No
gonna dis-
teachers, no
They're gonna
counselors, no
discuss,
one.
they're gonna discuss it in
They,
class.
no.
That's when you parent.
And that's
That's
and
when
that's
you parent.
what I
That's
think
when
is, that's my point, that's what I think is important. And the lady whose daughter's name is Emma,
I really don't want to interrupt here, not committee chair, but really, I don't want to have rebuttal going back and forth here. People have made their statements. If anybody has a new statement to make, we'll hear it at this point, but respectfully, I'd like to hear from anybody else who hasn't spoken at this point.
I have a new statement, can I just
No.
make another?
No.
People have already spoken. You've spoken.
Are we gonna take
spoken.
Good Earth off because it's full of
If
prostitution?
you've spoken. You know, you have 3 minutes for public comment, there are
Lady
policies.
Charlie Weber.
So,
How do you mean 1406 Old Mill Road? I already submitted my comments to the school board, so it won't take much time, but I do, to the woman who said about the kids who don't have anyone to discuss it with, I mean, 2 things. Number one, I don't think the book is pornography. I disagree with that. I think Atwood's point in using all the sex and violence was to really take that dystopian theme all the way to its end point and to show these kids what could happen, you know, with small steps can turn into something disastrous. And that was her point in all that horrible violence, you know, sexual violence. She needed to take it all the way out to that, to show these kids what could happen. And as far as the kids who don't have someone to go home and talk to, that's the beauty of reading a book like this in school. They delve into it. I mean, when they read Fahrenheit 451 about the burning of the books, it was, you know, my child got so much out of that book, discussing it in class and writing papers about it, and the dangers of censorship, and they just got so much in-depth discussion in school that I couldn't even offer her at home. Like, she just learned so much from a book like that that, you know, I couldn't possibly teach her. You know, we have amazing English instructors here, a fabulous department, and they're making excellent choices for our kids, and I really think we have to trust them and, you know, have some confidence in their decisions. That's
Anyone else? And so I just want to say too is that I have a whole stack of letters that we have received as a school board that they've been disseminated to all school board members as well. And that this has reached as far as the UK for a student who graduated in 2015 wrote back to us about the book. So I just want to let you know that this is a big topic, and I've gotten more emails in the last 24 hours than I have in the last 2 years. But it's all good. So I thank you all for your comments. We're going to get started with the meeting. So let's go ahead and do this then. So we'll do approval of the minutes. Okay, thank you. And then we're going to I'll hand it over to Lynette, but we're gonna go a little bit out of order so that we can address the book issue first.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Baxter. So we will be moving the first item under new business, which is summer reading options, to the first item. So first I want to state that as a district, we appreciate the engagement of our parents and our community members. We were made aware of the concerns pertaining to removing The Handmaid's Tale as one of the optional books for the 11th grade honors English course for summer reading. The Handmaid's Tale was approved as a summer reading option by the Wyomissing Area School Board of Directors in 2008 for the 8th grade honors English course. The students in this course are required to read the Scarlet Letter. I'm sorry, 11th grade. I'm sorry. The students in this course are required to read the Scarlet Letter. The students also have two options for the second book to read. They must choose between The Handmaid's Tale or Grendel. Both of those choices are modern reimaginings of the Scarlet Letter and Beowulf, which are the texts that are covered in the 11th grade course. The Handmaid's Tale is also on the College Board's AP list for literature that we often consult with. It also appears on the AP Literature test as an option to write about. The assignment for this course is to read the book over the summer in preparation for their choice book project. The choice book project is to create a product that will demonstrate how a theme in the novel is reinforced by at least 3 other elements or techniques within the text, which could include the setting, character, plot, style, conflict, point of view, symbolism, or irony. After discussing the concern expressed with the appropriateness and the removal of this book with our school level staff, the following course of action has been taken by the district at the high school. The English teachers will provide a revised description of the books that are offered on the optional list to make sure that parents can make an informed decision about the content within. Also, the teachers will increase the number of optional books available to students. Currently, there's 1 required reading and then 2 choices for the optional reading. We will now move to 3 choices for the optional reading. I'd like to just remind the board that this, the concern expressed as far as materials and challenges to materials will fall under Board Policy 109.
And I think those are reasonable actions by the administration.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have any issues with the action of the administration. I think it's a measured approach. I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, I feel uncomfortable not taking something off the reading list that has been recommended by our administration, by our English department.
I agree. And you know, just to say, I took the time when this all started and I read the book. You know, I've been on vacation and I thought, I'm gonna get this book and I wanna read it and I wanna make sure that I'm making an informed decision, and I'm very comfortable with that. For everyone here, we're very thankful that you guys came out. We understand everyone's point of view, and we appreciate them, whether they're for the book or not for the book. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, and so that I hope that when everyone leaves this room, that we all understand that we are all entitled to our own opinion. There's a lot of stuff going on Facebook and all that kind of stuff, and I just want to make sure that we're very respectful, because somewhere somebody's going to be unhappy when a decision is made, when you feel very strongly about something. So I'd like to know that I feel strongly that our administration and that our teachers are looking out for our children's best interest. When we move on, you're all here, so I wanted to say it's very exciting is that we're actually getting a review for our STEAM plan initiative, about a 10 to 15 minute presentation. So if you don't have anywhere to go and you want to hang out and listen, I would highly encourage you to do that, because it's something that's very exciting for the district as we move forward.
sorry, Mrs. Wax, I do have to leave, Joey. After that wonderful statement, I do have an appointment I need to get to, so I do apologize. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're now going to go back to old business. The first item is our STEAM innovation update. So just to remind you that we are constantly updating our district website under curriculum and instruction for our STEM initiative. So please make sure that you are reviewing the STEAM page and you can see all of the latest happenings for the past month. A couple of things that we definitely want to share with you. First was our ad hoc group. So as you know, we have our ad hoc group of teachers who've been meeting to discuss STEAM and how we will incorporate this into our instruction. We're focusing this year on inquiry-based learning. I'm happy to report, if you remember last month, we talked about our teachers got together and they planned professional development for our teachers, for our collective K-12 body of teachers, to make sure that they knew exactly what we meant by inquiry-based learning and that they had a plan for what that would look like and how they could start to incorporate it into their instruction. So our teachers met in August and they planned out the professional development. Yesterday was the first day that we had early release time. So for parents, your students were home, but our teachers were still here working. And the teachers had their first introductory session. And what they did was a great activity. It's called the breakout boxes. So the activities really stress the 4 C's of communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. And our teachers had to work together to really think about a problem and figure out basically how to break out the box. So if you've ever done like an escape room challenge, it's like that for the classroom. Overwhelmingly, all of our teachers across the district participated in that in their grade level, in their building with their grade level peers. It was a wonderful day. Our teachers were really excited about what they were learning, and they had an opportunity to see how they could infuse that in their instruction as well. The same ad hoc STEAM teachers, that particular group, they've also planned the professional development for October the 9th, and that will be the next step for our STEAM initiative. So our teachers will have an opportunity to now have an in-depth discussion. Now that they've had an introduction to STEAM, they'll have an opportunity to have an in-depth discussion about it. They'll be able to view some model lessons and watch some videos to see what it looks like, and then they'll be able to engage in some specific lessons and activities on their own in small groups. And then in the afternoon, they're going to go back to their building and their department level, and then they're going to start to see how can they infuse this with the content that they're teaching. So it was really important to our teachers who've been a part of this work that we don't just introduce something and then we never come back to it, but that there's a consistent effort to make sure all of our teachers are trained and have the knowledge for the content that we're asking them to start to infuse. But it was a great day yesterday. At our previous meeting, we also talked about the plan for Wyomissing Hills. So I just want to share with you, we have been discussing as we infuse technology into that building to develop an innovation lab. So Mrs. Hughes, who is our gifted 0.5 STEAM teacher, she created a working document for us that really outlines the work that we want to do in our innovation center. So we're really happy to see that we have a plan in place. She let us know here are the materials that she will need. We will continue to work together to review that list, and I know we've been working with WAFE as well to identify which things will the district start with to implement and which things will we collaborate with WAFE on as far as developing that space. So we're really excited to see what's going to happen soon at Wyomissing Hills. At West Reading, you know that we have already implemented the one-to-one technology with our iPads. We are now transitioning the computer lab into their innovation center, innovation and design center. And so because the students have their iPads, there's no longer a need for the desktop computers or laptops. So they've been removed. The students now have ample space for the creativity and the design thinking and development of ideas. So the students, they go to the room, there's lots of materials. Again, we thank WAFE for supporting us with this initiative as well. The materials are there, they're available for them. What we'd like to do is really make this a state-of-the-art room for our students, a space that they want to go to that's inviting and it's engaging. So we have been working with staff from West Reading, and we brought in Office Depot to meet with the staff to really talk about the room. So rather than having like tables like this that are, not very flexible, we're looking at bringing in furniture that would allow the space to really be adaptive to whatever the instruction is. We're also looking at some different types of educational technology with them that could help to support that space and just make our Innovation and Design Center more robust. So we're excited for what's happening at West Reading as well. If you remember at our last meeting, we also discussed the renovation of the old wood shop and the senior high school. So we've now had our second conversation with AEM Architects, and you'll hear about